Saudi Arabia is one of those wacky countries, isn't it? You know, a wacky country where they do wacky things, you know, wacky laws. You're like, what's that all about? That's fucking crazy. You know, we all know that Saudi Arabia, didn't let women drive until last year, the year before. It was very recent. But some people like to point things out when criticising certain countries, such as Saudi Arabia and their wacky laws. I remember reading an article, an interview with, I can't remember her name, but she's like an Egyptian, British playwright or poet or playwright from Camberwell, I'm pretty sure, who made the wacky assertion about Saudi Arabia's, female driving ban when it was in place. They're saying, well, I don't know why you talk about that, because there are men in the UK who ban their partners from driving a car. It's like, yeah, but they're called wankers, and it's not enforced by the state. If it's enforced by the state, then it's a fucking big problem, because those men that would stop their wives from driving in the UK are just assholes, and we will treat them as such. But then again, there might be a little bit of a point to it. Just a little bit, because we can all sit here acting all smug and superior when it comes to, the policies and laws that are passed in these wacky countries. But certain things work, certain things are put in place because human nature probably demands it happen. I'll get to that. But what they have here is a wife tracking app. One sign of Saudi Arabia's vile regime. Others include crucifixion. Yes, well, crucifixion is pretty hardcore. Some might call it archaic. I don't know. I don't like to judge. Yeah, they've got a wife tracking app, but I've seen adverts for partner tracking apps, and ones that will monitor messages, like stuff you can pay for in the UK and America. There's plenty of stalking apps out there, and they're not illegal. Obviously, they're not state enforced, but still, there's a call for it. People want to track people. People do get like that. People will get like that, and the market will exploit that, rightly or wrongly. So to say, the vile regime of Saudi Arabia, it's like, well, there's people sat in the UK right now who probably go, that's not a bad idea. So treating women as chattels and executing 37 of its citizens are a piece for a sick state. Oh, I'd imagine so. So credit where credit's due. The Saudi Absha app, just described as inhuman by two clearly terrified Saudi refugees, also has some fabulous user reviews on its supplier website, Apple and Google Play. Right, so yeah, they're dragging Apple and Google into it as usual. That's fine. To read the surge of 5-star tributes placed after the app's invaluable contribution to human enslavement was widely exposed earlier in the year is to understand that, aside from adding value to Apple and Google, Absha is a boon to harassed owners of subordinate women. At a time when more and more of this human property is reportedly becoming fractious, how, even with support from religious police and fellow patriarchs, did busy men ever juggle endless personal admin with the non-stop supervision of potentially difficult wives, sisters, daughters and servants? Now, with surveillance at their fingertips, it's goodbye to disobedience. Nobody outside Saudi Arabia could imagine where we were before Absha, writes one reviewer awarding 5 stars. Okay, so this is starting to become clearer to me that this isn't a state-enforced thing, like the rating systems per se that you got in China. rating people as human beings, which is pretty fucking dystopian. This is an app, and these apps are available outside of Saudi Arabia. You do know that this stuff exists outside of Saudi Arabia. It's just you can track any. It's both. Boys can track girls, girls can track boys, boys can track boys, girls can track girls, and blah 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 blah. This stuff, it fucking exists. So, are you gonna get into that? Other reviewers maintain that anything its critics have heard about tracking women on AppShare is all lies, and emphasize lest anyone stumble across the evidence that women controlling is exactly what one section of the app is for, that foreigners don't understand. Those who are not from our country shouldn't have the right to review this app since they have no idea what it is, writes Abdul Karim Kormi. Well, yeah, and let's face it, criticism of certain regimes comes from certain sides of the fucking fence in other countries these days, whereas we should be a bit more equal with our criticisms. Some bunch of them won't criticize Palestine, but they'll criticize Saudi Arabia, and then you've got Israel, Venezuela, whatever it is, blah 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 blah. It's whatever suits your fucking needs, isn't it? Really, instead of just outrage is selective these days, all based on political ideology, ideology over freedom of thought and intelligence, which is so human, isn't it? That's nice. So it helps that runaway Saudi women, such as the vulnerable Al Subai sisters, Mahar and Wafa, now seeking asylum from a hotel room in Georgia, and earlier escapee Shahad Al Muhaimid are also sufficiently familiar with digitized monitoring to be able to give outsiders some idea of what the AppShare. Some idea of what? Am I missing? Oh god, have I missed a bit there? Alright, oh dear, should have made this smaller. Of what happens when big tech companies supply the tools to update sexual apartheid for the 21st century. Yeah, but man, this stuff's available for other people too. The AppShare app has a section where men can, it appears with minimal effort, award or withdraw permission for their women or workers to travel abroad, cancel their tickets and register for SMS updates if unauthorized escape is attempted. Now that's the next level to this shit. Just being a bit stalky and tracking is one thing, but that is fucked up. Alright? Okay, now we got to the fucked up bit. You should have said that in the first place, because this tracking shit is out there. But this, some fucked up shit. It gives men control over women, protests Wafa Al Subai. They have to remove it. Usefully for Google and Apple, which have already disregarded similar demands from 14 members of the US Congress, the very fact that the Al Subai sisters have, as we must hope, escaped the Saudi authorities, they took their father's phone and accessed the app. Oh, well, that's what you got to do, has been cited in its defense. Mona El-Tahawi, the Egyptian-American commentator, and a fervent opponent of guardianship, has quoted a Saudi feminist who argues persuasively to some that the app, though an abomination, is nonetheless an improvement on the earlier system. Those who want to flee can do so without app access, but could never before with actual paperwork in the previous bureaucratic system. Well, there's a side to it that I didn't fucking see coming. That's interesting. But leave aside Saudi women who can never dare or afford to risk the unknown of a successful escape or the imprisonment or worse that could follow a failed one, and it remains hard to see how this design flaw, pending wider adoption of Touch ID, exonerates Google and Apple of complicity. Isn't this technology as inherent in its way to the abuse as were once, say, Scold's bridles or iron slave collars? A few years ago, Tiffany & Co. hotly denied that it had ever made such collars, nor have we ever made any jewellery in our 179 history for the deplorable purpose. Right, okay, that's something new. Right. Jewellery in our 170, blah, blah, is not forgotten or universally forgiven. That Brooks Brothers did, on the other hand, clothe enslaved domestics. Okay. A conviction, as dear to some progressives as it is as it evidently is to certain tech giants, that concepts such as equality of the sexes have no place in the lives of Saudi women, such as the Al Subaid, I'm probably saying that totally wrong, continuously. Sisters perhaps explain why the anonymous feminist intervention retweeted by El Tahawi has been widely aired, along with tributes from Saudi men to an outfit that doubles as their means of persecution. You could easily get the impression from such reports that violently enforced male supremacy is not regarded by many normally observant believers in universal human rights as axiomatically barbarous, nor its victims are thereby entitled to the immediate asylum. The indifference of Google and Apple to the reputational impact of distressed Abshur survivors tells the same story. Why should Saudi Arabia comply with demands from the US Senator or Human Rights Watch when, for example, a journalist on the Columbia Journalism Review argues better than a Saudi crown prince or a UK one ever could that we shouldn't judge? Well, that generally comes down to the consensus of a lot of people. The writer explains, for the benefit of people with overactive ethics but no access to Wikipedia, the reason that this wife hack tracking feature is included in a government services app is that tracking. Right, it is a government services app. Alright, okay. You need to say this all at the fucking beginning. Like, come on, man. Come on. Okay? I guess it would be because you can stop flights and paperwork. Right. Okay, right. A husband is a wife's legal guardian and has control over her movement. There you go. Similarly, as he did continue, crucifying and beheading prisoners is, as we have been reminded, perfectly legal in Saudi Arabia. Maybe if we could just understand a little more and judge a little less, there could be many more ways of monetizing cultural relativism beyond arms sales and techno collusion with the male guardianship system. Oh, with all your words, man. Not that we need to remind the Spanish Football Federation, well, the Al Sabah sisters' fear of discovery by Saudi men and the imprisonment and torture to which rebellious Saudi women have previously been subjected. The Spanish Football Federation considers relocating its Super Cup for 6 seasons to Saudi Arabia, a country currently listed as the second worst in the world for women. I was like, you just don't know anything about like how the world works, do you? You know, like. Whereas the Scottish golfer Carly Booth preferred to describe it last week when she celebrated Saudi sponsorship on the day the country mass executed its 37 citizens. Culturally, they are in a different place to some countries. Yeah, straight up. It must soon become dismally obvious to young Saudi women who risk everything to escape guardianship just how much of the world they now inhabit is equally hospitable to allies of or apologists for those same guardians. Yeah, you wouldn't say that about Palestine though, would you? Let's fucking face facts. You know, call it all out, mate. Come on. Now, look, this is some wacky shit. But I tell you this, from the stonings of homosexuals in Brunei that's going on now, to, you know, this fucking crucifying people upside down, what the fuck's going on in Saudi Arabia? I put it to you. There's certain groups of people in the UK, so we use the UK as an example, and America, but UK, if you suggested certain ideas to them, punishments, they'd fucking go for it, and they'd vote it in. Think about it. Think about certain people. If you, I'm not gonna even say. I'll let it pop into your own fucking head. Let's say he said, you know, the punishment for rape was to have your genitals burnt off. Have your genitals pulled off by a tractor and then set on fire. Some people would support that and would happily see it happen in the United Kingdom. And there's other groups of people, if you said, what's the punishment for paedophilia? We're going to burn their genitals, or we're going to pull the genitals off and burn it with fire. In fact, we're going to throw 1,000 darts at them and watch them bleed out to death on a massive dartboard. Some people would be totally up for that. They'd vote that in. There's people from all walks of life. Yeah. All walks of life in the UK, just depending on their political persuasions and their moral compass. They'd happily see things like that. Racists. Think how much racism is bandied about these days. Punishment for racism: have your tongue cut out and stapled to your forehead. There's people in the UK that would happily let that happen. So it's to sort of sit there on your high horse, and this is legit. Sit there on your high horse and go, oh, well, look at what they're doing. Isn't that fucking mean and cruel? They think it's justified. I guarantee that you could become just as archaic and barbaric as they could, because that's the group mentality. That's human nature. So to sit there and say, oh, these wacky bastards, look at what the fuck they're doing. Evil. Backward. No, barbarians. Man, there's a hell of a lot of you that had certain things suggested to you if it suited the punishment you wanted from people. If the crime you saw was so horrendous and they suggested an even more horrendous punishment to go with that crime, you'd probably vote it in. So, you know, judge not, or these shall be judged first. That's fucking facts. Think about it. Think about who I'm talking about. It might even be yourself. It's too good for them. That's what they say. Jail's too good for them. They should be harpooned. They should be sellotaped to a nuclear bomb and blasted to Mars. You sit there and judge Brunei. Think about it. In Brunei, they probably view homosexuality the same way some of you would view paedophilia. Well, the way most people should probably, but like, you know, some wacky people. There's wacky people everywhere. You think, if it was as wrong as you thought it was, would you support stoning paedophiles to death? Huh? You crazy motherfuckers. What about rape? If you crucified rapists. I was about to say rapers. Rapers? You crucified rapists. Huh? If they suggested that, probably might go for it. And yet, some countries might not look at rape in the same way that we do. Yeah. It's all starting to fucking marinate in your brain now about what you are. You're just an organism that talks too much. Yeah. So, you know, you can call Saudi Arabia wacky. Yeah, quite rightly. But you have the potential to do exactly the same wacky shit yourself. So don't be fucking judging. It's fucking true. So true. Me? Nah, fuck them. Fuck Saudi Arabia. But, you know, fuck all wackiness too. Anyway, if you like me swearing and talking really crazy, check out all the links and check out stuff down there and click on stuff and like it and blah blah blah. And if you don't like me, fucking write me a death threat in classic form. I don't want emails. I don't want comments. I want a death threat cut out in bits of newspaper. Don't know where you're going to send it to because you don't know my address. But you know, just send it somewhere and say it's aimed at me, and maybe the person you send it to might know how to get it to me. You never know. Take a chance. Life is about taking chances. Anyway, peace out.